Hello friends. Today I'll be painting along with Bob Ross's The Joy of Painting Series 2, Episode 4, which is titled Shades of Gray. Bob said he was inspired to do this painting when a person with colorblindness told him that he could never paint because he couldn't differentiate the colors. Bob's solution was to do a painting that was done entirely using white and a dark mix of Prussian blue and Van Dyke brown. Because white is naturally associated with snow, this will be another winter scene, this time featuring craggy peaks towering over a lake, evergreen trees made with both the fan brush and the palette knife, and the first cabin of Season 2. I hope you still have your coat out from last painting because it's only going to get colder. Let's get painting. Okay, so this episode only features two colors, titanium white and a mix of 1/3 Prussian blue and 2/3 Van Dyke brown. The blue and brown mixture appears almost black until you begin to put it on the canvas, and the blue really makes this winter scene look cold. Just getting some there on my 2-inch brush, and now I'm going in, you can see with just the corner up in the sky and swirling in some dark wintry clouds. Just trying to keep my hand moving in a circular motion as I'm doing this. You don't typically see straight lines in clouds. At least not at this step anyways. Just trying to fill up the whole sky here. Making sure that the tones kind of vary throughout the sky so that you don't end up with anything that's just a flat cloud layer. You know, we want some life in there, something a little bit more interesting. Now going in there to the bucket of paint thinner and shake it off. Shake it off again into a trash can. And then beat the devil out. Now with my clean and dry brush, I'm going to start going back in and swirling a little more, but this wasn't quite dry enough for me there. Now we're just blending. So at this stage, basically, you're just kind of pretending you're the wind up in the sky there, fluffing the clouds around and giving them their shape, giving them body and volume. And now I'm dragging it down at a straight line from kind of an angle here. This is what I was saying with the straight lines. This kind of gives it an effect like light is coming through the clouds in between you and where those further back clouds are. Keeping that moving, keeping it alive and keeping it interesting up there. These are starting to kind of blend out a little bit more than I think I would like here, but that's okay because we're not done yet. Now I'm switching out for my fan brush there, picking up some of that dark color. We're going to add some more details to the clouds now. And after blending that paint that was already on the canvas together a little bit, this new darker stuff really pops again. And just like with the 2-inch brush, just trying to keep that fan brush moving and keep those clouds looking lively. back in and fluffing things up a little. You'll notice over the course of this painting that my palette kind of goes from having the two solid tones that it has now to a gradual kind of shift that goes from the white to the nearly black. As I add more things to the painting, I have to expand the spectrum some so that everything has its own defined kind of tone, and just kind of creates a bit of a gradient on the palette there. Just trying to blend it while at the same time keeping some of the definition. And cleaning off the fan brush there. One thing to note with this painting is that because we're only using a couple of different colors, the number of brushes I had to use was a lot less. Quite often I need, two 2-inch brushes, two fan brushes, two 1-inch brushes, but for this one I only needed one of each, and that was really nice. Of course I had some standing by because every once in a while you forget something, but just needed one each of the 2-inch, 1-inch fan brush, and as you can see there, the palette knife. And we've just got our dark color there, and we've been kind of adding some mountains there. And now with my 2-inch brush, I'm pulling that down, kind of trying to mold the shape of the land and the slope of that mountain. And blend it together without blending it all the way gone. I'm trying to really protect that really defined top edge of it as I'm doing my blending there. And now with my palette knife, I'm going back in and going to add some highlights to these mountains. Slopped a little bit there, but that's okay. As I'm doing this, I'm kind of trying to do it in kind of a little bobbing motion. That was something I noticed Bob do when he was doing it. He was kind of bouncing the knife along the canvas as he was adding the highlights to the mountains. I think that adds to the kind of paint breaking effect that he's going for. You can see now I'm making a shadow color there. It's about halfway between the dark and the light. At this point it's maybe leaning a little bit lighter because these items that are further away from us will be lighter. And as we get closer to our perspective, the things we add will be darker. And that just adds to the overall depth effect. You can see there I picked up a little bit more white than I probably would have liked. Kind of adding another peak there in between those, just a little one. I'm just really trying to keep from using the same shape for all my mountains. Seems like that's a problem I have on a lot of my paintings is my mountains will be different sizes, but they all more or less have the same kind of pyramid shape to them. I'm trying to add a little bit more interest, but it's taken some practice. Now with the 2-inch brush there, I'm going back in and kind of really gently tapping along the base of where that mountain is to add a misty effect. Really trying not to destroy the topography I just created though. Just being real gentle. Now with my knife again, coming in on the left side and putting in another big mountain. This one will be a little closer to us. I'm just trying to make a shape that's, not a triangle. Really pressing the paint into the canvas here, scraping it. And then with the 2-inch brush again, just pulling it out and really kind of defining where those slopes are. As I'm recording this voiceover, I'm noticing some of the colors in the video are off. The other camera angle, not this one, was having some issues. This camera angle, it recorded this episode very dark for some reason, and in lightening it up, I worry that I may have made some of the background colors a little off. I'm going to try and fix that between recording this and when I publish it, but it's possible I won't be able to get it all the way fixed, so apologies for the way that might look. The goal, of course, is to make the painting look as good as possible. You can really see me doing that kind of bouncing motion along there. You could see the canvas bouncing along. Just trying to add in, some nice varying highlights. It's hard because when you're doing this, they often end up, in a band that's the same width as the palette knife there, and so it's you got to come at it from different angles and holding the knife a little bit different, and that just gives you the different effects. But it takes practice. Obviously, all of this takes practice. Now kind of darkening up our shadow color there a little bit, because this mountain we're working on now is closer to us. We'll be using a little darker shadow color. And I noticed too that Bob didn't really use the bouncing motion as much when he was adding in the shadow side of the highlights on the mountains. I suppose that makes them look a little bit smoother, which, perhaps in shadow that makes a lot of sense. But that was just something I noticed when I was preparing to paint this episode. And yeah, much like with the highlights side, just trying to create varying widths of shadow and a little different layout than just, the one width of the knife. I feel like I did okay on these. Definitely some of my better mountains, I feel like. Now just tapping those out to add in some misty at the base there. Just kind of blending it together. Now I'm coming in as horizontally as possible from the sides there to kind of pull in some watery effect, because much of the foreground of this painting is going to be water. I'm just using what was left on that 2-inch brush, trying to keep it level and horizontal so that it really makes it look watery instead of just a natural kind of when you see the slants in the water like that. Now I've got my 1-inch brush out now, and what I'm kind of trying to do is lift up the shadow parts just a little bit, just barely with the tips of those bristles, to make it look like lots and lots of far off distant trees growing on that mountain slope. I don't think I really pulled that effect off very well on this painting, but it was my first time, I think, using it that way, so I'm still learning. You can see, though, now that I've got my fan brush back out there. And that is a number 2 fan brush, if you were wondering. And now just going vertical and then a little back and forth with the tip of that corner to put in some trees. And I'm getting pretty good at doing this kind of tree. However, my scale is just off. And those 2 trees I'm adding right now just look humongous, on that mountainside. That's okay, though. Maybe it's just a small mountain. Now, and just another bigger tree on there. Once again, just scale-wise with that mountain, that is one big tree. Now just adding a little bit more blending and trying to kind of give the indications of just a little bit of foliage back in there on those mountain slopes. Just cleaning off the fan brush there. Now I'm picking up some really dark color with my 2-inch brush and coming in right off that little peninsula there and pulling straight down. I'm trying to anyways, to put in some reflections. This is one of my favorite parts of any painting that has this. And now coming from the side, really gently, just as gently as possible, to add kind of a rippliness to that water that I just added, or to those reflections in the water. I've got my knife out there and I've just picked up some liquid white. I'm trying to get as much pure white along the bottom there as I can to make a good, clean, kind of liquid white, titanium white mix. You can really start to see that gradient that I was talking about earlier forming on the palette there. And now just going in to cut in that water line. I've got a little bit too much liquid white on there, and it's going along a little thicker than I would like. But since I'm working with that knife now, this is a good time for our Bobism for the episode. There is no big secret to it. All you need is a dream in your heart and an almighty knife. Now I'm mixing up another really dark color, trying to get pretty much as dark as I can. And now we're coming in on this side, and we're adding a tree with a knife. This is my first time using the palette knife to make trees, and I was kind of nervous about it. As you can see, I'm just starting out with the shorter edge of the knife there, just kind of cutting in those top branches. And now, just working it, doing that same kind of zigzag motion I use when I'm, doing it with a fan brush. Now I've switched over to the longer edge. And something I really noticed on this episode is that I got really focused and stood too close to the canvas while I was painting and blocked that rear camera angle. I do that in a lot of paintings, but it's really bad in this one. So I apologize for that, but you can see we're leaning kind of heavily on the this view for now because I'm just blocking the way. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying to add enough paint that it's got some real texture to it. Bob talks about, when your painting's dry, being able to come up and feel the texture on these trees. And when it comes to, when we add the highlights to these trees here in a minute, having that texture's a critical part of that process. Just giving him a little friend there. No, they're not perfect, but for my first time with this technique, I'm really happy with how these trees turned out. Now we're coming in on the left side with a nice big old tree. Bob has his kind of leaning over at an angle, so I went for that too, and I think maybe I went a little too angled on it, but I'll let you be the judge. Comment below. Adding more paint right here as I'm going through the mountains and through the snow caps and the shadows, it's kind of difficult because the paint I'm adding is not a thin paint. I have not thinned it down with liquid white, obviously, and so it doesn't really want to stick to that paint that's already on the canvas. Takes a little extra coaxing. Trying to avoid going too straight with my lines. I give it, a curved, bent look to it for the bows. I kind of cleaned off my knife there, and I'm picking up a little bit of the shadow color. Just real gently pulling that over the top of the darker paint I just put down there. And it adds just a little bit of that shadow color then to the tips of those branches. Now we're doing the same thing, but with our highlight color, which is the liquid white and titanium white mixed together. So this doesn't have any problem transferring onto the darker paint below. some highlights to my bigger tree there. Maybe all that snow's what's got it bending over so much. And just cleaning off my knife there. Now I've got my 2-inch brush back out. Just picking up some paint. And just stamping in some shadowy bits for some foliage down there at the base of those trees. Adding in another peninsula out to our water there. Actually, I take that back. That's not my 2-inch brush. That's my 1-inch brush. 1-inch brush, of course, is really nice for foliage closer up because it adds more details. You get more individual looking stamps, I guess, with it every time you touch the canvas. Now I do have my 2-inch brush there, and I'm pulling in some reflections, as you can see. Trying to go real gently across the top. Picked up some liquid white there on my 1-inch brush and getting some titanium white. Mixing that in so that I can put some snowy highlights now on those bushes and shrubs. Yeah, just trying to vary the way the paintbrush is facing when it hits the canvas so that it'll make for some different shapes and not all look too uniform there. Also making sure to preserve some of the dark area. If you put highlights over all your dark area, then what are the highlights anymore? It's important to leave that dark to get that contrast. Now adding in some highlights to my reflection there, and going back in now with that 2-inch brush to make those reflections look a little bit waterier now that I've added the snowy highlights. And just so gentle here. You got to be so gentle. But all right. Got some liquid white and titanium white there. Just trying to get a really thin amount. Try not to have as much as I did for that first water line that I cut in. And I'm much happier with how this one went. All in all, this peninsula there that I'm working on, I think turned out really well. The trees look great. All the shrubs and stuff look good. It's real basic. But just really happy with how that part of this painting turned out. Just getting some more liquid white there with the 1-inch brush. You can really see me turning the brush there, trying to get some more unique shapes. And I've got a bristle stuck on there, just trying to flick it off. I've got my knife. And just cutting in a little roof line there. Bob said he always wanted to live in the mountains, and so we're adding a little slab cabin here. It's a little dark for the shadowy underside of the roof there, and the darker side of the cabin. And this is a part where I really had a hard time differentiating the shades, and it would have been nice to have had another color to kind of help this cabin stand out a little bit better. You can see I'm just trying to kind of cut the doorway into it there, and it just doesn't even look like I did anything. Add a little more snow on there, at least make the roof stand out better. That'll help separate the rest of the cabin from the foliage behind it. And just trying to cut in some, lines and things to make it look like it's really made out of some old planks and timbers and could fall apart at any minute. Now putting on some snow just at the base of that cabin. Nice snowy little slope there going down by the water. And at this point I was wishing I had a little bit more pure white left, because you can see the snow's a little muddy there, but as you get closer in these paintings, you're supposed to get a little darker. So overall, I think it probably helped the effect. I got my 1-inch brush back out. I've got kind of a shadowy color there. Just a little foliage to help push that cabin back into the woods there. And a few little snowy highlights. Alright, now we're going to add a tree using my least favorite method that we used on this painting. I'm going to start out by putting the main trunk on there using my knife, which that part's not too bad. It's the rest of it that I kind of struggle with. Once I get this trunk on there, I'm going to pull out my script liner brush and start adding branches. And the script liner is kind of a difficult tool to use. Bob always says to, pull it through the paint with the oil on there and everything to help thin it out and pull that paintbrush to a point. And that's easier said than done, I feel like. You can see I've got some linseed oil I just picked up there. Now I'm dragging it through the darkest color. Just real gently, just trying to put the thinnest lines on there, just the, indication of some branches coming off that old dead trunk. I feel like mine always end up being a little too thick, though, and end up, I don't know, looking like octopus tentacles or something. Of course, it's not just the width, but having a natural shape to the branches as well is important. And that's something I'm working on. Also knowing, how many branches are enough branches. Should we add more? Do we need less? Should there be smaller branches coming off the bigger branches? And that just takes observing, nature in person, and consciously thinking about that while you do. So many aspects to these paintings come down to that, just having observed nature and really looked at it, from a painting perspective, as far as, where are the highlights, where are the dark parts, what's the shape, But the more you do that, the better your paintings will be. Just a little something at the base there to help set that back in. Now, got some paint on my hand there, and oh wait, I still need to sign this thing. I realized at this point that Bob had actually got some red paint sitting around that he was able to use to sign his. I didn't, but that's okay. Just use the dark color there. Just put my name on there, and while I do that, just want to thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It's a small channel and we're still growing. As I'm recording this, we just crossed 300 subscribers, and that was really exciting. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint this. I know I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now, friends.